She was supposed to change Clash Royale forever.
Let's work out those nuts.
A healer in a game built on destruction. But instead of saving the meta, she became one of its biggest tragedies. Her downfall wasn't just about bad stats. It was a partnership so toxic it nearly broke Clash Royale's balance system. This is the story of the Battle Healer, and why she deserved better. Battle Healer was Clash Royale's first troop with healing powers, but she wasn't the first healing card. That honor goes to the now retired and much loved Heal Spell. What makes it even more surprising, Supercell once swore they'd never add healing to the game. They believed it encouraged slow, defensive play, something that clashed with their core vision for the game. But just a few updates later, not only did healing arrive, it took the form of an entirely new troop. But that decision would come back to haunt them, especially once players figured out what she could really do in the wrong hands. Battle Healer is a tank support, meaning she can soak up some damage while also helping other troops survive. She has around the same amount of hit points as cards like Prince, Bowler, and Valkyrie, putting her in the medium tank category. She has also introduced a new mechanic in the game, which only she and Royal Ghost had, the hovering mechanic. Her hit speed is the same as Valkyrie's, 1.5 seconds per hit. She deals 148 damage per hit, which gives her a DPS of 98. This is considered low compared to other melee combat troops, but her strength doesn't come from dealing damage. What really matters is the healing effect that she provides. Each time she lands a hit, she sends out a healing pulse, 4 times per second, restoring about 100 HP per second to every nearby troop in a 4-tile radius. In 2023, she got a new mechanic called Spawn Heal. Right as she spawns, she sends out a strong burst of healing in a smaller 2.5-tile radius, restoring about 200 HP instantly to nearby allies. All of this packed into a 4 Elixir card, a support unit with stats worthy of a legendary. But while her abilities were indeed unique, her journey through the meta was anything but smooth. Over the years, she's been buffed, nerfed, adjusted, and forgotten, each change reshaping her place in the game. One minute she was everywhere, the next she vanished overnight. So what happened in between? That's where this story gets messy. So let's rewind to where it all began and uncover what really happened to Clash Royale's forgotten healer. Ever since Clash Royale came out, a lot of players were hoping we'd eventually get a healer troop, just like we have from Clash of Clans. It made sense. Tons of Clash of Clans troops had already made it into the game, so adding a healer felt like a natural next step. And that idea didn't just come from fans. The devs dropped a few subtle hints over the years that they were thinking about it too. Turns out there was a pretty interesting backstory behind how it all finally came together. A long time ago on Reddit, the dev team revealed that they had once worked on a scrapped card concept called the Paladin. This card would heal every time it attacked, but it was ultimately never released. That idea didn't completely disappear though. It eventually evolved into what we know today as the Battle Healer. She was officially announced on TV Royale on November 23rd, where the developers shared more insight into her design and the journey that brought her into the game. And fun fact, Battle Healer and Healer from Clash of Clans are related to each other. There's a loading screen hint that says the Battle Healer's older sister can heal entire villages, which points directly at the Clash of Clans healer. A lot of players were happy about Clash Royale adding a healer troop into the game, thinking that it would encourage more strategic plays, but a lot of the community also thought otherwise. Even before she was released to the public, people started debating whether she was OP or not, just from the TV Royale episode. And we haven't even talked about the state the game was in back in 2019. And let me summarize it for you, it was bad. 2019 didn't just mark Battle Healer's arrival, it marked the beginning of one of the most hated metas in Clash Royale history. For starters, and basically the whole reason why this year was a mess, is because Elixir Golem started existing, a tank that is considered to be the most extremely low-skill card ever. He's similar to the Golem in many ways. He's big and tanky, and they both split into their smaller variants, Golemites, and Elixir Golem also splits into 4 blobs. Elixir Golem does less damage than the Golem, but its hit speed is faster, resulting in a higher DPS. While the Golem sits on a whopping 8 Elixir cost, Elixir Golem only costs 3. The catch with the Elixir Golem is simple. If you play him wrong, you get punished. hard. When he dies, he gives your opponent 4 Elixir. So if your push fails, you're basically down 7 Elixir, and they're up 4. That is a massive swing. And when you add the Battle Healer into that mix, things get a whole lot worse. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But if you play him right, you can steamroll the entire tower with 1 push. From the moment he was released, players hated going up against him. He was so strong, he straight up killed the regular Golem's popularity, dropping its usage rate straight to the ocean floor. And do remember that the difference between them was a whopping 5 Elixir. If you added up the health of the Elixir Golem in all its forms, it was almost the same as the Golem. The stats also scaled consistently through the Elixir Golem in all of its forms. The Elixir Golem was unique because of how it split into smaller forms. Its damage and health were halved in each stage of its transformation. This meant that 1 Elixir Golem had the same total stats as 2 Elixir Golemites or 4 Elixir Blobs. And those blobs were pretty powerful, man. Their HP was 352 at level 9, the tournament standard back then, which was more than the princess's HP of 216, meaning that they survived arrows. This isn't the case anymore though, thankfully, because now the arrows do a tiny bit more damage than the blobs, effectively killing them all. Keep all of this in mind. It'll be important later when we talk about how it worked in combination with the Battle Healer. The Elixir Golem was seen as a cheaper and more efficient alternative to the regular Golem. Because of its low cost and decent power, players often paired it with strong support cards like the Graveyard, Sparky, Witch, and especially Night Witch. And that brings us to the Night Witch, a card that became even stronger just before the release of the Elixir Golem. She received a buff that added 2 extra bats when she died. It made her much more powerful overall. The timing of that buff could not have been worse, or I don't know, man, maybe it was intentional. Logistically speaking, it's probably just a very bad coincidence, I think. But it doesn't matter. This is a Battle Healer video, not Elixir Golem. Anyway, I'll add a few more things to give you a full idea of 2019. They nerfed Witch and Elixir Golem in November, but not Night Witch because they thought her strength was linked with the Elixir Golem, and, well, they thought wrong. And because of that, we had to suffer through Night Witch beatdown decks. Oh, and Executioner. This time they were trying to balance or rework him, but ended up making him a bit overpowered. And wouldn't you know, before he got nerfed, he was included in Elixir Golem decks with the Night Witch. And somehow, Battle Healer was about to make that nightmare even more unkillable. Absolute cinema. And this is when Battle Healer was going to make a move in the arena. But before we jump to the next part, if you're enjoying the video so far, a quick like and sub really does go a long way. Seriously, it helps a lot more than you'd think. Thanks. So, Battle Healer was made available before its general release on December 2nd via the Trophy Road. She was also available in a special challenge as a reward for reaching 5 wins. She was instantly considered to be a special card because of her healing ability, and the healing ability alone was crazy enough to surprise a lot of people.
We released Battle Healer inside of Clash Royale, which is taking over the meta by storm. She's a very, very popular card, obviously. I asked you guys earlier on Twitter what you thought of the Battle Healer, and by far the majority voted that she is broken inside of the meta. So
one card I do see her paired up with is the Elixir Golem. Coincidence? Heck no! Healing blobs are no joke, and they are definitely synergies that also follow the Elixir Golem. If the Battle Healer does become meta, carrying spell cards like arrows and fireballs will probably be more prevalent than Zap and Snowball, just because she cannot actively heal units like goblins and minions fast enough.
Battle Healer was surprisingly versatile. She could fit into almost any deck you put her in. Some thought she was broken. To me, she was just balanced, effective, but not oppressive. She brought a lot to the table. High HP to tank during pushes, decent enough damage to clear out low health troops like goblins, and most importantly, her healing. That ability to keep troops alive in longer fights could be the difference between losing a push or taking the tower. She was often used as the tank for other cards like swarms or graveyard minions. She worked great with every card, pretty much. Even if you left her alone to chip away at your tower, she would do nearly 2,000 damage, depending on her level. If you left her alone, Battle Healer could be a real problem, but with support, she became even more dangerous. To be fair, she was usually the one doing the supporting. That was her role, a backline unit keeping everyone else alive. And in that role, she fit into tons of decks without effort. She worked great in Golem and Night Witch beatdown decks where players would stack a full push behind the tank. She showed up in Giant beatdowns, Three Musketeers, and even Goblin Giant builds. And when mirror and clone strategy started gaining traction, things got a little crazy, but that's a whole different story of its own. But there was one pairing, one combo that turned her from balanced support into a nightmare. The kind of synergy that made players rage quit and Reddit explode. Of course, one of her most iconic pairings was with none other than the Elixir Golem.
Things like
But imagine putting her down with an Elixir Golem and like minions.
Exactly.
Dude, good luck killing that push for 10
Elixir
Elixir.
Golem blobs are going to be OP with the battle healer in there as well.
It's an AoE heal around her, so like, yeah, you'll never kill those blobs. Forget it. Oh my god.
Seriously, Ash, why could that combo not just stay a joke? Right after her release, Battle Healer instantly became the go-to partner for Elixir Golem, forming a duo that would go on to define an entire meta. On her own, Battle Healer was pretty balanced, not too strong, not too weak, just effective in the right deck. But when paired with Elixir Golem, that is where things got out of hand. Her healing waves were perfect for beatdown decks, especially those that stacked tons of troops behind one tank. The more troops in the push, the more value her healing brought, and Elixir Golem took that value to another level. Every time he took damage, he split, first into 2 Golemites and then into 4 blobs. That is 7 bodies total from 1 card, and every single one of them got healed with every hit from the Battle Healer. That means unless you cleared the whole push quickly, it would just keep regenerating, and before you knew it, your tower was gone. Over time, their synergy became so strong that it was rare to see one without the other. They practically depended on each other to hit their full potential. And the stats backed that up. By December, both Elixir Golem and Battle Healer was sitting at a 14% usage rate with a 51% win rate. Interestingly, while Elixir Golem wasn't technically overpowered according to the data, it was still considered a strong card. More importantly, it was one of the most disliked cards among players, not because of how often it won, but because of how frustrating it was to play against. Seriously, some people were very tired of seeing Elixir Golem. They just wanted it fully gone from the game. Some players even went as far as writing ridiculously long walls of text on Reddit, ranting about how broken the synergy between Battle Healer and Elixir Golem was, why it was so frustrating to deal with, and how there didn't seem to be any simple way to fix it without completely gutting one of the cards. Some people were even annoyed by the Battle Healer and how unbalanceable she was, and how she only really appeared in brainless beatdown decks. Players were begging for a nerf to the cards, and Supercell answered by nerfing both Night Witch and the Elixir Golem again, until it died down and took Battle Healer with it. However, that doesn't mean it died. Oh no, it didn't. After that nerf, Supercell decided to just keep a close eye on it and see how the balance change would affect Elixir Golem in the meta. The nerf killed it, but the other balance changes were able to bring it back into the meta. The card itself was still viable and worked when played right. It wasn't as common to see as it was before. Before the month was even over, players were able to come up with this deck, which was pretty trending despite the nerfs, briefly becoming a top-performing deck in grand challenges and causing Elixir Golem to have the highest win rate in the game for a little while. In February, Supercell reworked the Barbarian Hut, finally making it competitively viable again, and of course, it didn't take long for players to throw it into the Elixir Golem plus Battle Healer deck, adding even more power to an already frustrating combo. Then, just 2 months later in April, Goblin Hut got the same treatment. Another rework, another buff, and just like Barb Hut, it slotted in perfectly into the same toxic beatdown archetype. Around that time, Supercell officially retired the heal spell and replaced it with the heal spirit, and let's be honest, that thing was busted at launch. All of these changes happened almost back to back, and they helped reignite the popularity of Elixir Golem decks. And if you thought things were bad before, well, trust me, they were just getting started. So Battle Healer herself hadn't changed at all. Her stats stayed the same, but thanks to everything around her getting stronger, her usage spiked yet again. By April, she was back up to an 11% usage rate, and the decks just kept getting more and more toxic as time went on. People started calling it the most rage-inducing deck Clash Royale had ever had, and they might have been right. Supercell couldn't ignore it any longer, so in May, they finally stepped in. They nerfed a lot of cards in May, like the newly buffed Goblin and Barbarian Huts, and also Battle Healer herself, which people had good feedback about.
Moving on to the Battle Healer, this is the one I wanted nerfed the most. Actually, maybe Tornado. This one or Tornado were the ones that I wanted nerfed the most. So Battle Healer is losing 10% HP as well. This takes it down to 1,426.
I don't think this nerf was needed because Battle Healer really wasn't overpowered at all. She was just, I don't know, annoying to deal with, and Elixir Golem didn't make her situation any better. They also buffed Royal Delivery by buffing its damage by 27%, making it able to counter Elixir Golem much better, which also hurt Battle Healer a lot. The very next month, Royal Delivery had its damage nerfed after becoming a little too powerful. This change gave Elixir Golem decks even more breathing room to stay in the meta, and the balance changes that followed didn't exactly help either. In fact, many of them ended up supporting the archetype even more. I could go over every balance change that played a part in this, but that would take a while, and this video is about the Battle Healer, so instead, here are the most impactful ones. The new Heal Spirit, Barbarian Hut, which remains solid despite getting nerfed, the introduction of the new Skeleton Dragons, and a nerf to the Bomb Tower, one of the best counters to Elixir Golem. These changes, along with several others, gave the Elixir Golem decks another wave of popularity. If one month looked bad for the deck, the next would often bring changes that turned everything around yet again. And Battle Healer would have average and balanced usage and win rates of 5 to 6%. Some people still complained about her being powerful and how a 4 elixir card should die to a 6 elixir rocket, but these are all crybaby complaints, so let's move on. For the rest of the year, both Battle Healer and Elixir Golem maintained fairly balanced and average usage rates. In October, the Battle Healer even received a cool new mechanic. She gained a hovering ability, similar to the Royal Ghost. This allowed her to cross the river more fluidly and collide with air troops instead of ground units. However, that hover mechanic didn't last long. On November 18th, it was adjusted. She could no longer pass through buildings, push back air troops, or bounce off the river when knocked back. I'm still not sure how she was even pushing through buildings in the first place, but hey, it's fixed now, so I guess that's nothing to stress about. Unfortunately for Battle Healer and Elixir Golem fans, their reign was coming to an end. At the end of 2020, Supercell dropped some heavy balance changes. The Barbarian Hut, Heal Spirit, and several other key support units used in Elixir Golem decks were nerfed. And to top it all off, they introduced a brand new card, the Mother Witch, which would go on to become a strong counter to swarm-heavy decks, making life even harder for Elixir Golem players. And well, with that, it was official. Elixir Golem decks were now dead and no longer viable. The same, unfortunately, went for the Battle Healer. 2021 was not a great year for the two, and what followed was the slow, painful fall of the Battle Healer, one patch at a time. Not only were they in bad shape, not even surpassing 3% usage rates for the entire year, but the introduction of new cards, balance changes, and champions completely killed any opportunities of Battle Healer metas. Well, okay, there was a slight exception in April. Elite Barbarians became completely overpowered yet again, and this Elixir Golem deck became very popular for like a week, before Elite Barbarians got nerfed back down where they belong, taking the deck with them. They became popular again in September, annoying many people, but ultimately, they died again. It was for the greater good. There still were moments in decks that would see success in grand challenges, and maybe on the ladder, but none of them would make a significant impact on the meta. Battle Healer would be seen in bridge spam decks along with Ram Rider, which were considered to be the new best decks for the Battle Healer, aside from the fallen Elixir Golem. Battle Healer also made occasional appearances in Golem beatdown decks alongside the Night Witch whenever that archetype became viable again, but as usual, it never lasted. These versions would show up for a few days and then fade right back out of the meta. At one point, players even went wild with mirror and clone strategies, stacking multiple Battle Healers on the field. And if you didn't know, yes, Battle Healer's healing ability actually stacks. So if you managed to get 2 or more of them close together, their healing effects would overlap, making them and nearby troops recover health at a pretty insanely fast rate.
I can't even place cards. You know what I wish we did? We should have... Oh! Okay, we cloned it. We decided to clone it, and that was a horrible decision. Oh no. I can't even play a card. I can't even place a card. Wait, we're winning. We're winning. Keep going. god! Oh!
Oh my god.
More battle healers. Freeze! Crap, I think I messed that up. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. All I know is we need more of these. We need more of these. Freeze it. Freeze it. Tornado. Couple more battle healers. Do another freeze when we're here. While we're at it, why not, right? Tornado. I don't even know. Freeze. Why not? Freeze is always a good thing. Oh my god, I can't even play cards fast enough. There's two. Oh, that's not gonna do anything. Oh, that's adorable. He tried to rocket my battle healers. He doesn't know. He physically can't kill them. He physically can't. Look at this. I'm just gonna watch them go. I'm not even gonna play any more cards. You can't stop them. You can't.
It was chaotic, hard to deal with, and honestly kind of absurd to watch in action. But hey, they were troll and niche, not made to last long. You would sometimes get a win or two, possibly make someone rage quit, but it wouldn't win you any competitive matches. And well, the introduction of champions really hit her hard as well, putting her at the lowest of the list with a sad 2% usage rate and 42% win rate. Yikes.
Let's do that. He gave up. He gave up. Oops. Like I said, guys, this deck is pretty disgusting. Pretty disgusting. Sorry, bro.
Sadly, the same was true in 2022. You'd see a lot of new good decks, but they were still temporary decks that didn't make it in the meta. Only worthy in grand challenges and stuff like that. Battle healers started appearing more and more from April to around July. At that point, Mirror had just been buffed. It could now play cards 2 levels higher than its own instead of just 1. This change made it work surprisingly well with the Battle Healer. When you mirrored her, you could end up with 2 high-level Battle Healers on the field, and since their healing stacked and they could heal each other, they stayed alive much longer than they should have. It created this endless loop of healing that was extremely hard to break without a solid counter, and for a brief moment, it looked like Battle Healer might actually be back. In July, though, they reverted Mirror's change because 2 levels is just way too much. Elixir Golem combos were slowly falling out of the meta. They had become a rare sight in most matches, and where there was no Elixir Golem, there was no Battle Healer either. The 2 cards had always been so closely linked, and without one, the other just didn't see much play. Supercell eventually realized that Elixir Golem's decline wasn't just due to shifts in strategy. It was mostly because of a harsh nerf it had received a while back. To breathe some life back into the card, Supercell gave it a rework in August. The biggest change? Instead of the full Elixir Golem giving your opponent 1 elixir every time it was defeated, now each Golemite would only give half of 1 elixir, and the same would go for the blobs that split from the Golemites. This change was meant to make the Elixir Golem less of a risk to play, giving players a chance to use it more strategically without handing over a huge elixir advantage to their opponent every single time. The health of the Golem and Golemites was also increased by 9%, and oh boy, this change made a massive difference. In October, Elixir Golem decks got a major boost with the introduction of a new champion card. Can you guess the one? It was none other than the Archer Queen. And if you don't know it already, she was overpowered when she first came out. Since Elixir Golem decks were already known for being strong and honestly pretty frustrating to play against, adding another powerful card like the Archer Queen made them even more egregious, at least for a while. And Elixir Golem got a hit speed buff in the same month, making it even more viable. And by the end of October, the usage of Elixir Golem and Battle Healer suddenly shot up, reaching record heights not seen since 2019. And trust me, no one saw this comeback coming. Their play rate jumped from just 1 to 3% to a whopping 24% in less than a week. But this spike didn't happen because of a sudden shift in the meta or balance change from Supercell. Instead, it was caused by the release of 2 new cards, Monk and Phoenix. Monk had its own issues, but Phoenix was the real game changer for Elixir Golem decks. It worked perfectly with this strategy. With Battle Healer in the mix, a core part of the deck, she helped not just keep the Elixir Golem blobs alive, but also the Phoenix and even its egg, so they could keep dishing out huge damage. Phoenix was so strong that it kept the Battle Healer and Elixir Golem relevant at high levels of play, including in top ladder matches and grand challenges. It was, in lack of a better term, broken. Thankfully, the Phoenix and its partner in crime, Monk, did not stay that strong for long. Supercell quickly issued an emergency nerf, and with it, the entire Elixir Golem plus Battle Healer combo began to fall out of the meta, dropping down near a 1% usage rate. Phoenix was still decent after the nerf, and the decks did manage to hover around 5% usage rate in grand challenges, but they unfortunately sank to 1% because of another Phoenix nerf in December. Nothing major happened in 2023 either. Battle Healer was in a rough spot, and players knew she wasn't performing well. Some people were actually happy about it. They were relieved that the annoying Battle Healer Elixir Golem combo was finally out of the meta. But for others, this was the end of an era. But regardless of opinion, it was clear she was genuinely struggling to keep up in the modern Clash Royale environment. A lot had changed since 2019, plus if she were still to be used, she would always be in Elixir Golem decks. Supercell had to make an important decision. They had to step in and give Battle Healer a buff, not just for the sake of bringing back the Elixir Golem decks, but to make her actually useful in a wider variety of decks. For a long time, she only really worked in one specific archetype, that being the infamous Elixir Golem Battle Healer combo that we've been talking about for like half of this video. And once that fell out of the meta, she basically disappeared from competitive play altogether. The challenge was finding a way to improve her without reintroducing the same broken synergy that made her toxic with E-Golem in the first place. So, on the 6th of June 2023, the devs came up with a change that would hopefully boost her popularity in a wider variety of decks. They added a new spawn heal mechanic, which really did nothing. Her spawn healing would have a 2.5 tile radius, healing 201 health on tournament standard level 11. At first, a lot of players were confident that it would change something with the Battle Healer because now she basically had the ability of the late heal spell, which actually did more healing than the heal spell at level 11. Excited about the change, players started playing around with her again, trying out old and new decks to see what worked. She appeared in various aggressive mirror decks, which weren't taken seriously. She was now seen more with Balloon, Golem, and of course, E-Golem decks. It did give her a little boost in June, bumping her up from 1% to 4% usage, but it ultimately dropped back down as July started approaching. She became so unpopular among some players that she started getting replaced by other cards in the Elixir Golem decks that she was once a part of. For the Elixir Golem players, this was big news because they were now playing decks that had a chance at being meta without the help of Battle Healer. This deck in particular was a popular meta deck from August through October, not containing Battle Healer or Electro Dragon. That said, this doesn't mean that Battle Healer was completely removed from E-Golem decks, not at all. She was still a common sight in those traditional familiar decks. In my opinion, honestly, Supercell's buff was actually a step in the right direction. It more or less achieved what they were aiming for with her, make her feel more usable without turning her into a problem yet again. And while her usage rate wasn't particularly impressive, her win rate told a different story. It was surprisingly decent. This showed that, although she wasn't being played very often, when she was used, she could still be effective, especially in the hands of skilled players in competitive matches. She wasn't dominating the meta or making headlines, but she wasn't completely irrelevant either. She was now that card, only good in that one weird deck in that one weird matchup. Never reliable, just situational. Elixir Golem also fell from the meta because of balance changes in November, which nerfed its new supporting cards. Even after the release of the new champion, the Little Prince, both Battle Healer and Elixir Golem didn't see much success. Sure, she showed up here and there with a few experimental decks, but nothing really stuck. Battle Healer had clearly lost her competitive edge, and for the rest of the year, she was barely seen in grand challenges or high-level play. But not all hope was lost, because in 2024, things finally started to change. And it started with one of the most broken cards Clash Royale had seen in years. In April of 2024, Clash Royale added the Dagger Duchess, who, if you don't know, was very busted at start. Her quick daggers were so strong that most troops in front of her literally melted away. While this was bad for the game, it actually benefited beatdown decks, especially Golem, because of its high health pool. And who followed around the big moving pile of rocks? The Battle Healer. Here's the problem with the Dagger Duchess. She is very powerful early on, but once her daggers run out, your enemy arena towers become sitting ducks with a plastic knife. Pretty much. She shined against swarm cards and also some medium beefy cards if she had all of her daggers. But against the Golem? In double Elixir? Now that is game over right there, madam. So that's why this deck and its variations became trending for a bit. If you look at its win rate today in Royal API, you can see that it still has around a 48% win rate, meaning that the deck still has some power to it, but back then, it was way stronger. Interestingly, in May of 2024, the #1 ranked player on the leaderboard by the name of Zodiac was running this classic Golem beatdown deck with the Battle Healer. Now, first of all, this deck was heavy, one of the most expensive decks in the entire game, costing an average of 4.5 Elixir. But it was able to win you a couple of games if you knew how to play it. But it also very much depended on the user's skill and type of matchup they got. Because of these events, Battle Healer managed to climb up the ranks and reach 5% usage in top ladder. But as Supercell started nerfing Dagger Duchess, as they should have, her popularity started drifting away yet again. Despite her declining popularity though, Supercell decided to remove Battle Healer's passive healing ability in an emergency nerf in June. According to Clash Royale, it was, quote, removed for technical issues in the new update. If that's the case, then why not just fix those issues instead of, nerfing an already dying card? The issue in question was that the Battle Healer would still heal herself with her passive healing, even if she was in combat. It should have only worked outside of combat, but the bug made it so it was active all the time, making her significantly harder to kill. And this hurt her significantly. In October, Supercell also made a change that further hurt the Battle Healer. She was no longer immune to Earthquake or the evolved Royal Giant's recoil. This might not seem huge on paper, but it significantly reduced her effectiveness in the meta, especially against control decks. It marked the last meaningful balance change the card would receive. And also, it didn't really make much sense. She floats. It's an Earthquake. Why? As for her passive healing, it was simply gone, removed due to a bug, and Supercell never really brought it back. They didn't even seem interested in fixing it, which made it feel like the mechanic was quietly abandoned altogether. And that quiet abandonment kind of sums up her whole story. 2024, a year where people had hopes of Battle Healer being buffed, was crushed just like that. Battle Healer fell to the bottom of the usage lists, even dropping to 0% in June. In October, shifts in the meta gave Elixir Golem decks a brief window to shine once again. For a short time, they were even considered overpowered, but their comeback didn't last long as new evolutions and cards continued to roll out. Elixir Golem quickly fell out of favor and disappeared from the spotlight once more. This is how 2024 ended for the Battle Healer. As of 2025, again, nothing particularly notable has happened to the Battle Healer. Still in the game, still just barely in the game, still lingers at the bottom of usage charts, showing up only when the meta takes a weird turn. It is a far cry from the promise she once had. Just take a moment to think back to her announcement video. Supercell was genuinely excited to introduce a Paladin-style character into Clash Royale, someone who could heal allies and bring a fresh dynamic to gameplay. They clearly enjoyed crafting her mechanics and theme, but fast forward to now and it feels like all that potential has been left behind. That excitement has faded, and the card has just been left in the dust. Over time, many players have called for a buff, hoping to make her relevant again, but the community's opinion is anything but unified. Some believe she should be buffed, or at the very least have her passive healing brought back. Others agree she needs help, but they're cautious. They're worried that any meaningful buff might push her right back into toxic or unfun decks. I'm looking at you, Golem, and no, you're still stuck in timeout. And then there's a group that wants her gone entirely. They argue that she was a mistake from the start and doesn't fit Clash Royale's game at all. I genuinely believe there is still some hope for the battle healer, and it's entirely possible to rework her in a way that doesn't bring back the same toxic combos that made her so controversial in the first place. I mean, look at Elixir Golem, a card once thought to be completely broken and left to rot. After 2 smart and careful reworks, it made its way back into the game in a healthier form. If that was possible, then surely something can be done to bring battle healer back in a balanced and creative way. Love her or not, battle healer stands out. She's one of Clash Royale's most distinct designs. Whether you enjoy playing her in decks or you just appreciate her design, yes, even if you're just admiring her aesthetic, you absolute gooner, she brought something rare: hope. A support card with a soul in a game ruled by chaos. It would be a shame to lose a card like that, and honestly, if Supercell were to remove her tomorrow, most players probably wouldn't even notice. For some, it would even be a relief, but that's exactly the problem. So forgotten, she could vanish tomorrow, and most wouldn't even blink. That alone should be a wake-up call, because if a card disappears and nobody even notices, not every card has to dominate, but this one, at the very least, she deserves a rework. And maybe, just maybe, that rework can start by bringing back her passive healing. It wouldn't make her unstoppable, but it might just give her a fair shot in the chaotic, ever-changing meta we have in 2025. A meta that's already crowded with flashy evolutions and high-impact cards. And well, hey, speaking of that, why not think about giving her an evolution? Inferno Dragon's getting one, so what's stopping Battle Healer? To end this video, we're going to talk about a couple of evolution concept ideas with a video made by Me Graphics on YouTube. As a first idea, why don't we give her the ability to resurrect nearby allies? Kind of like Mercy from Overwatch, or something similar to what the Medic from TF2 does. It would actually be really cool to see and play with it in-game, but it would get a lot of second thoughts. And if it were to get added somehow, she would get a lot of nerfs. Another idea is, what if the battle healer dropped a heal spell upon death, similar to how Lumberjack drops a rage spell when he dies? Battle healer could leave behind a small healing aura, essentially a mini heal spell that briefly restores health to nearby friendly troops. It wouldn't be overpowered, but it could give just enough of a second wind to keep a push going or help troops survive that extra hit or spell. Plus, it kind of fits thematically. She enters the arena healing and she leaves it healing. Not only would this give her a stronger identity as a support unit, but it would also make her visually and thematically cooler. Imagine her falling in battle and her last bit of healing energy radiating out like a fading aura, almost like she's trying to protect her allies from beyond. It's a beautiful and elegant mechanic that would make her feel impactful without reintroducing the toxicity of her old pairings with Elixir Golem. Balance-wise, the effect could be toned down to avoid abuse. Small radius like the original heal spell, modest healing amount, not enough to undo heavy spell damage, and no stacking if multiple battle healers die. It would also help her fit into other decks beyond Elixir Golem, making her more flexible while preserving her support role. And for our last concept idea, how about giving her like a healing stream? Instead of being close to a friendly troop and attacking the enemy, what if she just heals them with a beam from far away? Again, just like Mercy from Overwatch and Medic from TF2. I know, this type of thing would be way out of the world of Clash Royale, and it would probably be held to balance out, but just imagine how cool that character would be. If you made it this far, you already know the Battle Healer story is full of promise, pain, and missed potential. But she wasn't the first support card Supercell struggled to balance. Before her, there was the original heal spell, a card so broken, so unfixable, they didn't just nerf it. They deleted it. It's one of the wildest balance stories in Clash Royale history. Tap the video on screen, and I'll see you there.